Hi folks, I'm Franco Tenelli and this is the first part of the series Appoggio Step by Step. In this video I will talk and show you some examples how you should develop your Appoggio technique and of course the steps necessary to fulfill that ambition. Before talking about step number one, it's very important for those who want to really understand support is to understand how to breathe consciously, how to use your diaphragm consciously, because we all know breathing itself is a very subconscious process. And when we croon, almost the same thing happens. It's very natural. So when we say this singer is natural, we usually mean the crooner, the guy who sings along with his guitar in falsettino or falsetto voice. We are not talking right now about this type of production, we're talking about classical production and appoggio for classical singers. I want you just to realize, because there are nuances between classical music and non-classical music, non-classical voice technique. So before I get to the first step, you need to learn how to breathe consciously. I already said that. And for that, you need, and absolutely need, to understand how your diaphragm works. Not theoretically, but consciously, to feel the diaphragm working. Give you an example of the yoga breathing right now, and you can practice that. First of all, yoga breathing is a conscious breathing. It means that your attention is on your breathing, and it's always a slow breathing. Let's say this is the first example how you should inhale. We have this natural habit that is lost when we are not babies anymore. When babies are born, they breathe exactly the way I'm going to show you right now. They breathe with the belly, so-called. So you see, your diaphragm, your chest should be open already in a posture like this, and then you should take a deep and conscious breath down. Hold it and then start slowly exhaling. Take it again. Slow exhalation. Now you see, there is two types of slow exhalation. Is that you can hold it with your lips, and in this case your diaphragm is passive, and absolutely passive. And what is a resisting? Your lips. The same thing happens when you sing sul fiato, non-diaphragmical way of singing, or falsetto way of singing. The same thing happens in this particular way. You don't use diaphragm as consciously at all. You just use it as a passive barrier between your lungs and low abdominal muscles that actually create this pressure. So you need to get this, because you need to understand that appoggio is a dynamic opposition of the diaphragm. Dynamic means that you have to consciously do something. So sometimes press more down, press less, press extremely down. All of those things are not conscious. So you need to get your function of the diaphragm to your consciousness again. And it's an interesting process. When you fulfill your appoggio technique, or at least master it, then this technique the most of the percentages, 99% maybe or 95%, will go into subconsciousness. So you will not have to use all your mind all the time to get the right sounds and right phrasing. But before you do that, you need to get it consciously. So this is a must for you, because if you don't feel your diaphragm consciously, then you won't be able to influence it. You won't be able to play with it. Appoggio adores natural placement. In fact, true appoggio, as I mentioned in my 9 golden rules of appoggio, is based on natural placement. Natural placement is not such an obvious thing, and not all singers have it. I have to warn you. And I mean not students. Not all professional singers have natural placement. Those who have natural placement, they usually have one register singing, or they are appoggio singers, whether they recognize it or not. Those who use different placements, that's another story, we talked about it earlier. So we absolutely need to have our appoggio technique working as it's supposed to work. We need a natural placement or natural resonance. What is natural resonance? Natural resonance is actually a technique, of course. It's because what I'm going to suggest you, it shows some conscious approach to it. But it's also and majorly your bone structure, your resonance of your body, your throat, your vocal cords, the length of the vocal cords. There are many, many nuances there. We cannot, count all of them. So we have to find a placement that is called natural placement. Natural placement will assure that your voice will have one voice. Of course, you can have a natural placement, and then, not knowing about appoggio technique, you can actually use also placement technique. It's also possible. But if you know your natural placement and it's uncompromising, then you can jump from this particular start and start developing your voice in this direction. Is it difficult to find natural placement? It's not that difficult if you don't have a preconceived ideas about your voice. Preconceived ideas could be inflicted on you by some ignorant chorus master who heard you singing high notes and putting you in a high place or tenors category, or heard you singing the low notes, put you in the low category, which is, we don't blame chorus masters. They don't think about individual voices anyways. They think about the ranges in their chorus. Or it could be self-inflicted. You just love this particular voice. You love the bass, and the other voices just don't resonate with you. Or you want to be a tenor and nobody else. Because other voices don't really resonate with your soul. Maybe repertoire also is to blame. And so you discovered you have a voice, and then you absolutely sure you want to be a tenor or any other voice you love. And this is a noble idea, because your spirituality, your upbringing, your taste comes into the play. But the problem with that could be an inconsistency between what you have really as an instrument, as a physical instrument, and what your preconceived ideas tell you what you're supposed to be. So finding the natural placement for this type of singers is very difficult, because they have preconceived ideas, and they will start using this animalistic sounds like in the area that they think they are, and never exploring the other ranges of their voice. And of course it will be almost impossible for them to find the natural placement unless they're lucky and their natural placement is matching their psychological placement, if you like. So you need to be open-minded and don't have preconceived ideas. That's the very important thing when you discover your natural voice. Of course, it's a lot easier when you're just starting. You don't know who you are and you don't have any ambitions of being a baritone or a tenor. You just love singing and you're open. why I am so adamant about you finding a natural placement. Because if you don't find your natural placement, then you might have things happening to your voice. Like the worst case scenario for your career, your voice will be short. You won't be able to reach the full 2-octave range. So you won't be able to reach high notes, top high notes, or if you're in a low voice, you won't be able to reach really chunky, low resonant notes. That can happen. That's the worst, because you won't have a career as an opera singer if you don't have the full range. You will be able to sing maybe secondary roles in your life. Yes, you will have the voice dissected into 2 or 3 registers, which is the placements type of technique. But you might have a career, and even a good career with that type of technique. The one thing is you won't have a beautiful instrument. Your personality may be projecting, your musicality may be projecting, and that's not a little thing. If you're a very musical, artistic person, you can get away with not having a great instrument. The great instruments are only those who use one register singing. I repeat, one register singing. Now, as logically comes from my statements that I just mentioned, when you find your natural placement, and you can actually watch my video, Finding Natural Placement, I talk about this, and I show you some tricks. You have to absolutely be ready for surprises, because you might be talking in a high pitch tone like this. Oh my God, yesterday I've seen this. You know, this is like, it's high larynx position. I don't know why you're talking like this. Maybe that's your natural voice resonance, and maybe not. Maybe there is a psychological thing behind it. I know this for women. Some women talk like this in a higher voice because they have naturally low resonance and they're embarrassed to talk like a man, so they change it into falsettino talk. And in this case, it's absolutely obvious that this, if this person has a talent, you might, mistakenly or wrongly account her for a high soprano because she talks like this, but in fact she could be a very low mezzo-soprano or even contralto. I had this experience. So it's all depends on how open-minded you are, and if you're ready for surprises, ready to be a bass, ready to be a baritone, ready to be a tenor, ready to be any voice. But it's better even not to think in these categories. It's better to think as, I find my natural resonance, natural placement, and I will start developing my voice from that, slowly. Because the natural resonance lies at so-called phenomenal voices, which are very rare. They are maybe 1 in 10,000 in all professional singers. That the voices that's supposed to have natural placement just given them by God. Even those that have real natural placement within just only an octave. This is a great range. Don't laugh at 1 octave. 1 octave of full connected voice resonance for the beginner is a phenomenon. It's not happening usually. But usually what happens is a half octave, or even sometimes just few notes that resonate through you. And you have to find this free resonance placement, and then jumping from this statement, you develop your voice through this natural resonance, going towards the top and the low notes. So your voice will slowly expand. So in a way, we have to wake up our instincts instead of concepts. The concepts or methods in this case are our worst enemies because they make our mind narrower. We don't accept everything that is true, that is the reality. So the reality of finding your voice, open-mindedness, and be open to be any voice is natural to you, even goes against what you thought you are. The tips how to do it is, I already showed the tips in my other videos and showing how to do it, but it's important to resonate naturally in a way. So you find this real natural spot. This is, we're talking not about some kind of sing naturally advice from a pro teacher who forgot that nature is, is forgotten for many years, and it's not so natural to sing in classical technique. But in this case, if you, as I advise, you yawn, it's important because you make your resonance chamber larger. That's necessary. For crooning is not necessary. For classical singing is a must to yawn, because you need to form both low larynx, and low larynx creates more space between soft palate. And when you yawn, soft palate also gets round, so your voice does not escape. Air does not escape. The resonance goes like this. So this is that's one of the things that some vocal cords, soft palate. It creates the perfect zone for resonance, and more powerful zone than for just crooning, definitely. And then within this yawning position, you have to try to produce some sounds, like almost animalistic sounds, just resonant. Don't try to sing an aria or even to sing the sustained tone. Just do it like oh, oh, oh. If you're low voice, mo. You have to explore all kind of spaces and spots in the low register, in the middle, and the high. Maybe you have a high voice, very high voice, then you go ah, ah, you go higher. But all the sensations that bring this natural discovery is that you don't have any tension in your throat, and it sounds very, very resonant and easy. Of course, that is the first step. When you discover that easy, resonant, and it might surprise you because you thought, oh, I'm a tenor, but I don't sound so natural in the high notes. Listen, don't be frustrated. First of all, this discovery does not make you a tenor, baritone, or bass. Don't worry about it. This discovery only makes and shows you natural resonance. That's the first step. What will make you really a tenor or baritone or a bass is the further development. It's very difficult, for example, to make a difference between a dramatic tenor and baritone. So it's really, nobody knows. If the baritone with quite good squillo comes to a tenor, he might train him as a tenor, and eventually he might become a dramatic tenor. And if he comes to a baritone, then he would train him as a baritone. That's the conventional thing. Because so it's for a dramatic tenor or any dramatic voices, it's kind of always very gray area. The only voice that can be really discovered and say, you're a dramatic tenor, you cannot say that, because unless you have the range of the dramatic tenor or a dramatic soprano or a dramatic baritone, you cannot call yourself a baritone. This is another mistake we call. It's some young voices who have hardly achieved 1.5 octave. They say, I'm a baritone, I'm a bass. Before you get your range and you prove that you're a tenor and you prove that you're baritone or bass, you're not a baritone or bass or tenor. Remember this. And it's even much better to not to think in these categories, just to think in natural development, where your voice goes. It goes a little bit low and then expanding to the top, and that's all you need to slowly develop. So step number 1 and pre-step, as I told you, is to learn diaphragmical conscious breathing, because we use diaphragm when we sing classical music. And Appoggio uses not just the diaphragm, it uses the active opposition of the diaphragm, dynamic opposition of the diaphragm. So it has to be conscious. Without that, forget about appoggio. Just forget about it. And step number one, after you got it, is to find your natural placement through different exercises. As I showed you, you can explore it in a higher, in a lower, in the middle, and find where you sound the most natural and the most pleasant to your ear. You know, and it's kind of, in a way, it's very difficult, because if you have preconceived ideas that you sound as a tenor, you might not be getting there. Natural resonance, so to speak, brings you a comfortable sound, you know, and a quite powerful sound, you know, at least in comparison to what you had before. It's powerful and it's very easy. Okay, discovering natural voice or natural resonance. Take a middle C and do something like this. So slide it down. And so you see, by sliding down and thinking of opening your throat, and try to do it through the yawn. It's a little bit difficult to do it with E, because E is a closed vowel and open throat. So you have to combine closed mouth and open throat. So this has to be in a yawn position. And then you have to find where you support naturally. That's the best way, because it will be difficult for you to figure out supported placement at the same time. So one of those things has to be natural. And so you get from C, or you get a little bit lower, B flat, that's all you need to do. It's just to, you know, you need to do these exercises, kind of opening up your throat without really singing. That's important, so that you have great resonance, and finally the great resonance. When you achieve opening up the throat naturally, don't jump anywhere further. Don't be discouraged by if you have a small, very small crooning voice. It doesn't tell you anything about your another technique, so-called supported classical technique. In fact, you may have a very small falsetto voice, like something in a way she was. This is called sulfiato, non-diaphragmical breathing. And it's fine if you don't want to have like powerful sounds and you use microphone. But the same phrase, of course, not in style, but in different operatic style. The opera singer would sing it there. Something in a way she was. But that's the operatic way of doing it. It's totally different technique. So let me show you again. Something in the way she was. This is falsetto or sulfiato, technique called sulfiato. The diaphragm is absolutely passive, and you coordinate this with the throat, basically. It's a throatal singing. It doesn't show the throatal sound because it's a small sound, so the vocal cords are not. Like, imagine if you have electric guitar without an amplifier, and you, for some idiotic reasons, you try it to sound like an acoustic instrument. So this is an electric guitar without an amplifier. Do this. It won't sound really great. You just force it. You deteriorate the sounds. So the technique, if you're using falsetto technique, in singing, and then you said, okay, classical, let me reinforce my falsetto. There's no such a thing. Reinforced falsetto is not going to bring you to the unification of the registers. Trust me on that. This is a false idea. For some reason popular, but very false idea. And so you see, this is electric guitar. No matter how you play, without an amplifier, it's like the same thing. Without the microphone, a falsetto singer, sulfiato singer, could only be heard in a small company of friends, or in a huge arena when he has a mic. And good acoustic guitar is able to be heard in maybe not huge places without a mic, but the places like in Montreal we have Pollock Hall, which is around 1,000 people, and Oscar Peterson Hall. The classical guitar can carry and can project. You see the difference in the sounds. But why the classical guitar has this sound and acoustic, you probably guessed. It's easy to guess, because acoustic guitar has a deck and an empty space inside. So it's called resonators. Okay, this is the resonance. This is deck and resonance. The same thing happens with the vocal cords, with the vocal placement. If your larynx is quite high, then you're limited. In the next lesson I'm going to talk about step 2, is a slow development of this natural resonance. You have to develop this natural resonance slowly, using support and not placements, and then only then you will be able to use one register singing or appoggio technique and have a beautiful undissected instrument. Beautiful as one. Thank you very much. This was Franco Tenelli, Science of Singing. Until next time.